building for this touring car championship over 30 laps at the Surfers Paradise Raceway, 96 kilometres of a 3.2 kilometre circuit, all in readiness. Two Mazdas on the front row with blanketing a Commodore their away. And a dreadful start for Hansford, who fades, but Moffat goes with Brock, but not quite Brock to the lead. Followed by Hansford in second under the Dunlop Bridge, and Moffat at least. Grice then battling with Johnson, who made a good start. Fury's fifth.
There's Hansford way back in the pack.
And his job was to try and keep Fury down a place, so he now really has to battle forward in the field.
A Sander corner, Peter Brock in the lead. Hoping for a repeat of Adelaide International Raceway, where he managed to open a 5-second gap on Alan Moffat in the opening stages, but this time Moffat has a clear track in second position.
Brock running hard, Grice with the job of trying to pin Moffat, but couldn't do so in practices, so can he do so at the start of a 30-lap race? 14 there's John English, followed by Steve Masterson. There's Hansford. But it's Brock, Moffat, Grice, Johnson, Fury, Harrington. That's the pack in the leading six. It's a gap back then to English and Masterton blanketed together in two Falcons. Johnson already a bit sideways under the bridge. The fastest corner on an Australian racetrack, 200 kilometres an hour as they turn into that corner. What a lovely lead to Peter Brock. It's 1.7 seconds. This is the job he must do, his only chance. That section of the second circuit, Goodyear corner, third gear.
Greg Hansford moves up to 9th position.
Moffat's time yesterday, sensational though it was at a 14.2 and good enough for pole. Some people feel was sandbagging because he'd done a 14.1 in practices on Friday, but look at what's going on behind Brock with Alan Grice reining Moffat in. Look at him there, and slipping underneath him. Yes sir, second place Grice. You remember the Adelaide argument between these two, and look at Dickie Johnson slotting in too.
Grice came to the grid today wearing a paper-mache bull bar on the front of it with number 43 on it. That's Moffat's number. It gives an indication of just the antagonism that exists between these two drivers now as they go side by side into a Sander.
Gives an indication too of how good that Mazda is, that he ran round Grice and held him on the long way round, and it's 3.5 seconds now back to Moffat behind Brock, who's just done a 14.96 on full tanks. Johnson now wants Grice, and the big crowd here at Surfers Paradise on Qantas Hill, around here at the S's, is screaming. And Fury, look at him too, chiseling at both of them.
Brock already onto the main straight. Johnson heads for the pits.
Brock leads by 4.5 seconds from Moffat, Grice, Johnson into the pits. So fourth is Fury, fifth is Harrington, and a big gap then to English and Masterton still.
Brock, with that security gap already open, now working to keep the heat off his tyres, to keep them in as perfect condition as possible for the race that he knows he faces towards the end of this event as Moffat starts to challenge.
Peter Brock from the Holden Marlborough dealer team, what are your race tactics?
Get out in front and try and stay there.
Do you reckon you've got a chance with the two Mazdas?
Yes, I think that we've got a chance, and I don't want to discount Greg Hansford, but I don't think that Greg will give us the problems that Moffat will. I think that Moffat is going to be able to run very, very fast here today indeed, and I think that my best shot is to get a gap if I possibly can, hope that he gets caught up in some traffic and try and hang on.
One of the comments that we heard from you earlier this week during practice session is that you feel the circuit's not as bad as it was as far as tyre wear. How much of a difference is that going to make to you?
Tyre wear isn't the problem, but it still gives you we still get an instability problem, particularly under the Dunlop Bridge, the very fast corner leaving the main straight where the car does rock around a fair bit from the rear end, which is the tyre walls flexing. And then we get the tyre compound overheating. Now, it's not wear, it's more or less that it loses its grip. So that will slow us down for sure.
Okay, and looking at the other contenders in the field, how about the Datsun Nissan team?
Yes, well, I think that they're probably a little further away than they were in the last round, to be honest. I think that they may be 2 or 3 tenths off the pace. Now, if we all get in front and we start slowing each other down, and in fact my tyres go off a little bit, I think that we're going to have a big problem with George Fury. There's no doubt about that, because he seems to have the ability of keeping a car going fast the whole race as well.
Brock's lead 4.5 seconds, Hansford 6. And that's the position after 5 laps in this 30 lap, 6th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, an enthralling contest so far.
The defending Australian champion, Dick Johnson, has wheeled his car to the back of the pit area, and Dick Johnson is out of the race. He's equal third in the Australian Touring Car Championship at the moment.
Well, a great disappointment, no doubt, to most motor racing fans around Australia, and particularly to Queenslanders, but more especially to Dick Johnson. Dick, what happened?
Well, actually, you know, we're just starting to get into groove, and it broke third gear in the gearbox, so we're left with no third gear, so there's useless trying to solder on because it'll only just lock up eventually.
Well, you're making a lot of headway. Was the car going any better than it has been in the last couple of races?
Actually, it was feeling half good. Seeing the guys in front of me slide all over the place didn't make me feel all that bad, really, but it's unfortunate that these sort of things happen right at the time when you need them not to happen.
So it'll be largely a testing job for you now for the next rounds?
Well, I don't know about the next round. Well, I think we'll try and sort the car out a bit better so we can be a little more competitive, because Brock was doing it easy just driving away into the night there, and I thought, well, we'll hang in as best we can, and the car was looking pretty good.
All right, Dick, well, the best of luck anyway, mate, with the rest of the rounds.
Thank you.
Third place being contested between Alan Grice there in the lead, with George Fury, the leader in the Australian Touring Car Championship, on 120 points, sitting in a comfortable 4th position. Behind them, Steve Harrington, and behind Harrington is Greg Hansford, starting to bring the Mazda RX7 up through the field. That's Grice.
So the prospect of Fury wanting a way around Grice, of Moffat looking for a way ultimately around Brock, and of Hansford ultimately looking for a way around Fury. Fury a 15.1 in practices, Hansford a 14.8. Hansford having his first drive of a car this year, to which the response of people, whilst respecting his ability, and there he is, look, already on Harrington, that's 5th and 6th place. Brock's lead chiselled to 3.9 now in front of Moffat. This is Moffat's teammate, who says the Mazda goes under the bridge quicker than his motorcycle's used to, but that they run much slower down the straight where, and Hansford now under Harrington. Will he hold him on the run up to the Sander corner, the left-hander? Harrington's fairly determined that he doesn't. but Hansford's bike's running at nearly 260 kilometres an hour, a 750 Kawasaki down the straight here, but he says slower around all the corners than the Mazda. The response of a lot of the drivers to Hansford's time was that for a man still learning, it shows just how good the Mazda is.
But certainly he's still learning, as he indicated right there.
He thought it was about motorcycle width, I suspect.
Now a comparison of the heavier V8 car down the straight versus the 950 kilogram Mazda, with some 80 kilograms of Greg Hansford on board.
Peter Brock, a new lap record on lap 2 of 1 minute 15. Fury's done a 16.1 on the lap 4. Grice a 16.4. Moffat a 16.1. So Moffat hasn't at this stage shown his hand, shown his best time.
Harrington certainly taking a good lesson from teammate Alan Grice by blocking his corner very well on Greg Hansford. But that won't make Hansford very happy at all.
Interesting thing is that Steve Harrington had dabbled in motorcycle racing earlier in his career too. Fury, you just saw go out of shot on left of screen there, attacking Alan Grice. So the two STP Roadways cars being attacked, and Moffat in second place, whittling Brock's lead to 3 seconds.
This time Hansford under brakes. Had to do it and gave Harrington no option. Desperate Harrington. But does it?
The 10th lap of the 30 lap round 6 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Moffat's gap behind Brock now is 1.76, and as you can see, the gap third to fourth is even narrower between Grice and Fury. Look at Fury's Bluebird move around there. 1/3 race distance with Yellow Falcon of John English parked on the side of the track. That's first and second place. Boy, that's early on, and you can hear the crowd yelling and cheering and waving and clapping. I don't know if you can hear them waving, but you can hear them doing all the other things, and they really are enjoying it.
Moffat will throwing out his challenge earlier than we'd anticipated. Brock having to cover his corner, knowing that the smaller Mazda could dart underneath him at any time.
The gap between that battling pair and the next, Grice and Fury, is 10.7 seconds. And the gap from them to the next battling pair, Harrington and Hansford, is 9.8. Big, strong legs of the V8 on the straight, you can see it run away from the Moffat Mazda. Brock says one of the main improvements he would like on his car is a big rear wing. Look at the taller rear wing on the Mazda. It's also a very tall rear wing on the Bluebird Turbo. Moffat, on the other hand, says he wants the 13B Wankel engine, which is about another 30 horsepower on the one he's currently using. Because despite this sort of threat in the short races on the tighter tracks, he says that the climb up the mountain of Bathurst and the run down the straight, but on those sections, his car will still be handicapped by comparison with the V8s.
The lap record has fallen to pieces. It stands to 1:16.2, shared by Moffat and Dick Johnson. Brock is down to a 1:15, Moffat a 1:15.5, Hansford a 15.8, Fury a 16.1.
And while we have a look at the point score in the series at the moment, Moffat has just been shown the bad sportsmanship flag from the start-finish line. You can see the situation there, remembering that by the end of the eight rounds of this series, drivers can only count 7. Fury, for 120 points, is counting all 5 rounds so far. He's the only driver who has scored in all 5. But Brock is getting the pressure earlier, I think, than he ever expected it. Now looking down the barrel of 2/3 of the race, or trying to hang on for 2/3 of the race against Alan Moffat. Look at the way the Mazda's walking through there. It's just no effort. Just a dab of the brakes, really, to keep off Brock's car rather than to brake for the corner. Look at him, hold a tight exit from the corner, then say, all right, I'll tuck it in behind. It's all so easy, except running with him down the straight. Now watch him under the bridge. Just a lift for the Mazda, turn it in, flat strap, 9,000 revs, 5th gear. Peter Brock now in 2nd place, but he'll run him to a sander. Can he take him on the run to the left-hander? Power down, getting going. Moffat knows it's critical.
And the answer on the bad sportsmanship flag is that the stewards of the meeting say that Alan Moffat caught up all his distance under the waved yellow flags for John English's crash, and they say that he did it in a manner which seriously disadvantaged Peter Brock. It's unlikely that anything will come of it officially, but they've told him that they didn't like him catching up under the waved yellow, going too fast while officials were on the circuit. Sensational stuff from Peter Brock.
Moffat now doing a 1:15, equaling Brock's new lap record set only a few laps ago. And you can see that quite evidently. He started suddenly to peel a second off his times. And Brock wants to argue. Fourteen laps completed, they're on their 15th. Half race distance coming up. And while that situation's been changing at the front of the field, Moffat on Brock. The clash between Fury and Grice, which was in the order Grice-Fury, has changed. Fury now 3rd place, the series leader. Moffat only 2 positions in front of him on points, so that for a victory, Moffat would be on 25. For 3rd place, Fury would be on 24. And if you discount Fury's lowest score of 21, he's 3 in front. Hansford has Harrington. So Hansford is now 5th, Steve Harrington 6th. And the gap Moffat back to Brock is 0.6 of a second.
Brock uncharacteristically wheel bouncing there. He's really having to work the Commodore to stay in touch with Alan Moffat.
Nearly 0.7 of a second now. Well, it was. It changes a bit under the bridge. Brock, in fact, doing a mighty job here against the Mazda. Tremendous job. Lap 17. The fast Isander corner. Which is 3rd gear for a Commodore, 4th gear for a Mazda. Remembering the Mazdas have 5 speeds, as does the Bluebird Turbo. This is a good entry under the bridge for Brock. A nice wide entry there. He should be quick on the run down to Goodyear. Donnelly, the lap car, and there, Grice back under Fury for 3rd and 4th place. They two under the bridge. Fury's car jumping all over the place as he works it very, very hard.
Moffat keeps his lead.
Fury's reply to people, and Brock's in the lead again. What a mammoth job. Under the Gemini, number 33 of Lester Smurden. Marvellous stuff by Brock, and at least part of the crowd love it. Moffat, of course, will just not give up, like a little terrier in his ankle bones. Grice Fury, 3rd and 4th. Hansford's 5th, and well away now from Steve Harrington's 6th. The gap 2nd to 3rd. Moffat in 2nd and back to Fury Grice is 13.25 seconds.
And with race tactics seeming to go by the board, we did speak to Moffat earlier about his tactics.
Alan Moffat, the leader of the Moffat racing team, 2 Mazdas today. What are going to be your tactics?
We're going to try and get a terrific start, Bob, and go absolutely as fast as we can. We learned the lesson the hard way in Adelaide, that if we get behind the Holden, then they dictate the race speed. Our lap times go to HELL and get all hot and bothered and frustrated and land up losing the race. So I'm on pole and Greg's in a good position. If we can get away, we're going to go like the Dickens.
You're not worried about getting too far out in front?
The last time I checked, the objective of this exercise was to win the race, and I've never seen a jockey in the Melbourne Cup pull his horse up because he thought he was too far in front. We've got an excellent car here. The little RX7 is really suited to this track. It's probably the one track where I've got more than an equal chance against the other fellows. They're not frightening me at all today, and I think even if I made a mistake, I could come back and still get at them. But I'm not going to sit back and wait for things to happen. I'm going to really work on my start. I've been practicing it during the weekend. As long as I get away from them on the opening laps and don't have any fracases with any other Holden drivers, I'm going to get out and get in front.
Here's two top drivers loving the dice. This is what motor racing's all about, and they love the close, hard contests. One of them, of course, will be disappointed at the end of it all, but until then, it's just the ball. Brock doesn't mind a bit. The only thing he wishes is that his car, in terms of tyres, would just stay in slightly better shape so that he could compete with Moffat on more level terms. Moffat's riposte to that would be, the terms would be more level if he had a little bit more power. But he's got a car with low frontal area, brakes beautifully, centre of gravity low, gets around corners well, uses 4 tyres well and doesn't tend to overheat them. What I mean by using 4 tyres well is that the taller cars tend to lean much more on the outside too, with the inside tyres not doing as much work.
John English causes the traffic jam there for Peter Brock as 2/3 of race distance go down, 10 laps remaining of Surfers Paradise International Raceway.
That's the situation then, which has changed considerably. Grice has, of course, been back to 4th and regained 3rd. Brock attempting to do the same at the front with Moffat. And Hansford trying to rein Fury in to achieve his target of putting him 1 place back. He is within 5.4 seconds of doing so. Brock at this stage knows 10 to go, 9 now. I think happy to hold back to look after tyres for a lap or 2 before he has another crack at Moffat. He hasn't given up at all. That's Grice Fury, 3rd and 4th. Fury, on the other hand, having to work his car very hard indeed. His answer to people who say, but you're running for the points and for the series and you're not trying hard is ridiculous. He said, I drove the inside out of the car in Adelaide and I did the same here yesterday from a lap time of 15.1. He said, I've got very, very little left in me or the car. The gap back from Fury to Hansford pursuing in 5th place is 4.6 seconds. And Alan Grice's car showing traces of smoke.
This guy's slowing up
bad
Fury.
news for Moffat.
This guy's slowing up Fury and giving Hansford the opportunity with a clear track in front of him to start to close the gap. Now by almost a second a lap.
What Moffat was worried about before this round was trying to keep Fury down as far as possible by himself and Hansford, he hoped, beating him. You saw Hansford come into picture there, onto the straight, not very far behind Fury at all. A watch on it tells us it's 2.7 seconds. And the other thing that Moffat worries about is how many of the other drivers will contest the later rounds if they decide they're not in the running. He has to consider that himself because he has the option at Oran Park time of competing at the Le Mans at Lakeside at the last round of competing at the Le Mans 24-hour race. Bluebird looking a bit more concise through the S's there than the big heavy Commodore in front, and you can see that Fury is able to open the corners up a little bit more, get the car out into a wider apex to the right-hander and keeps it there. You see the smoke from Grice's car.
Hansford significantly closer this time round.
So that the gap between those three is now 2 seconds.
And the smoke is issuing from the engine department of Alan Grice's car.
Obviously, if Grice retires and Hansford gets past Fury, Moffat is no better off in a points situation against Fury than he is at the present time. And if Grice keeps going and Hansford can get by, then that is helping his team leader. Still leading the race from Brock.
As Greg Hansford continues to close the gap now quite substantially. We spoke earlier to Alan Grice.
Alan Grice, what will be the race tactics of the STP team?
Well, certainly to try to conserve the tyres as much as possible. If that can be done by making a break initially, if I'm lucky enough to get the jump and make the break, I'll try to establish a little gap and then settle right down with keeping the car very straight and conserve the tyres, because that's going to be our problem at the end of the race. If that's not the case and I can't get that initial jump, I'll still try and settle in a position, I think on this track, because of its different tyre requirements, I'll try and settle in a position and once again conserve the tyres, because it's there's going to be a fair old dust up over the last half a dozen or 10 laps, and I want some tyres left for that purpose.
Well, even the best laid tactics go wrong, because Alan Grice is way back from where that dust-up would occur. And his big problem now is the new boy Hansford ranging up behind George Fury, and Fury now with a real reason to want to pass Grice and get away from Hansford.
Half a lap ago it was 0.8 of a second. Now you could barely measure it on a watch. Third, fourth Fury, fifth Hansford.
5 laps to go as Alan Moffat and Peter Brock storm down the straight.
0.8 of a second between them. And then this trio argue over the next placing. That's the situation.
Fury looking for it.
And Fury on the last lap had a big moment under the Dunlop Bridge. It wouldn't want to have been any worse. The car really had to walk around. In fact, of the 3 cars there, Fury's is the hardest to manage on that fearsomely fast run under the bridge, 200 kilometres an hour. Can the boost of the 4-cylinder 1.8 litre outdo 5 litres of V8 on the run to a Sander?
Grice isn't going to give way easily, but
He's
has
behind a twin-chamber Wankel engine whirring round and round at up to 10,000 revs.
And now Fury hopes that for 4.5 laps, Alan Grice will hold off Greg Hansford.
Four laps remaining as Moffat, followed by Brock, less than a second in arrears, cross the start-finish line. Fury third, Grice fourth, Hansford fifth.
Grice playing the slipstreaming game down the straight, moving Hansford over to a position where you'll have to brake harder into the corner. But Hansford does it.
Fourth place now, fifth place Grice, sixth place Harrington, seventh Masterton. Those cars all remaining unlapped. Now, Hansford says, for Fury.
That's Moffat in the lead. Behind him, Peter Brock, a lapped car in between them. Brock deals with him so quickly under the Qantas Hill.
Very muggy day at Surfers. Rain last night, rain on Friday night. But the track not only dried out, but absolutely clean. As Moffat over the start-finishing line is now 1.7 seconds in front of Brock, and with 2 laps remaining. And it's a further waiting for Fury to come by. 17.3 seconds back to Fury third, then Hansford, then Grice.
Steve Masterton in the Ford, lapped by Alan Moffat.
Lapping Masterton now in 7th place.
And back in 3rd position, Hansford starts to climb over Fury. There it is.
Two rookies in car driving terms, although Fury now with about 18 months of campaigning under the belt, but still, in an overall competition sense, probably far from his potential. Hansford, this is his first car drive this year after an aborted attempt to ride bikes at Bathurst, but medical advice advising him to retire forever from motorcycle racing as he challenges for 3rd place successfully. So, Peter Stuyvesant Mazdas are 1 and 3, sandwiching Marlborough Holden Commodore 2nd, the Nissan Turbo 4th, and the SDP Roadways Commodores 5th and 6th.
And that will make Alan Moffat so happy, and undoubtedly will win Greg Hansford a place in the Peter Stuyvesant Mazda team in the last 2 rounds of the Australian Touring Car Championship at Oran Park in 2 weeks' time, and at Lakeside in 4 weeks.
Grice into the pits, out of 5th position. So, bad luck for the man who started the season so strongly, leading at Calder, grabbing pole at several of the early rounds.
1 lap remaining as Alan Moffat goes across the start-finish line.
Then Grice retired in Perth after also retiring when leading at Calder. So now has points from only 3 rounds. Moffat will be delighted to know that Hansford's been able to peg Fury back a position. He perhaps disappointed that he didn't get a better start and run more interference with Brock early on. He will also be disappointed that Grice fell out of it and wasn't able to hold Fury back, because Fury will remain series leader despite victory here today for Moffat, who retains really a fabulous record in the series. This will take him to 3 victories and 2 second places, a retirement only from the 2nd round at Sandown when he got his bumper up to being in the lead.
And Alan Moffat only just wins the FM 104 6th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship after having to slow onto the straight when that slower car